some PvP. Iron Banner. Alright, so what was I talking about before? What do I want to talk about? What do I want to talk about? So, I think the one thing I may want to work on is maybe getting some sort of like once a week type thing. I guess maybe do like a solo podcast with myself. Just talking about whatever, maybe gaming news and stuff like that. Like just kind of do a general wrap up of things, you know, gaming wise I'm interested in, and maybe just giving my like personal opinion. Just overall, I don't really know. It's like one of those things. It's like I'm trying to expand other than just playing Destiny over and over again. Granted, I probably would do it in a setting where I'd probably still be playing Destiny, but I'd be talking throughout the whole time. I'm not 100% sure if that's the way I want to go, or I don't know, because I mean, I do watch a lot of podcasts and listen to a lot of them, and you know, one of those things is I always like to have some sort of discussion about something. And you know, I very much would like to discuss things like that with other people. But I don't know. You know, it's the only thing that's hard though is to have like a general discussion with yourself about a story. I mean, granted, you know, I'd have to do some like put some thought into it, you know, some thought into it prior to actually probably recording. But I would like to do it live. I'm not a very strong editor, so I'd have to probably do it live just because I'm not very good at editing, and I don't know, something about being live and, you know, doing an unedited version of something I feel is so much more important to me, just because, you know, it's, you kind of think on your feet. You don't actually like, you know, you can't really like go back and edit something out. Damn it, someone had a rocket. I don't know, that's why, like, as much as I probably make, you know, as much as I like to make YouTube videos, I honestly enjoy the interaction side of Twitch more, just because, like, you post a YouTube video, you know, someone watches it, and then, you know, they leave a comment maybe. I mean, granted, the same thing can be said about Twitch. You know, someone you know, starts a stream, and then someone may join the stream and comment maybe. But who knows? You know, and I would have to say, I'm not saying because it's a video game platform for the most part, but gaming's always been like a passion of mine. You know, pretty much since like a very early age, I was into you know, my first ever system was a Super Nintendo. I can recall a lot of great memories I had on that system, which kind of like bums me out that I still have yet to find NES Classic. That's like the one thing I would love to own, because it's like my childhood, and it's like the nostalgia. Not saying I played all the games that are on there, but there's a good chunk of games that were on the SNES Classic that, you know, hold a place, you know, in my memories of when I was a kid. And I would have to say, overall, for the quality of the library, a lot of those games are pretty meaty, whether, you know, in depth of like what they have to offer. But regardless, like, I think, you know, it's great that, you know, I feel like in a weird way that Nintendo did it right, the NES Classic, compared to like how other companies have done it before. Because I think Sega came out with something. I think Sega came out with something, and it really was just a cheap piece of plastic. I think they had like a little small chipset in it. It wasn't anything like, sure, it looked like the Sega, but it just didn't have the same it just didn't have the same nostalgia factor. I don't know, like, because if you really think about it, it's like, I think Atari does them pretty much, and you know, they do them all the time. Like, I'm sure you could probably go to like any store and there's someone selling like a classic Atari thing that has like, you know, all these games on it, but you know, you don't, you know, it wasn't as big as a deal as, say like the Nintendo, you know, the SNES Classic. You know, every game that's on there, I feel like a lot of people who are into the SNES, you know, at least one of those games, you know, that person has played at some point in their lifetime. And from front to back of that library, all those games are classics, or, you know... Oh, okay, so I can't shoot you in the head, I guess. Just got that potato aim. But, you know, overall, I think... I thought there was a portal there. Overall, I think the SNES Classic is a solid piece of hardware. Granted, I haven't played it, but from other than like, I guess the cord still not being long enough, I haven't heard anything really too negative about it. If anything, I've heard only good things, just because people have already figured out how to, I guess, mod it and put additional games on it than what's already on there. Granted, it's that it goes across that whole policy of, you know, putting ROMs onto a system that you technically don't own. So it's like that. There's really no good way about acquiring the digital properties other than owning like the physical like version of it from when it launched. But I feel like, in a sense, that it's not as easy to acquire some of those, you know, games and systems. Just because, you know, everything's not current, it's all retro. I thought that was my old teammate for a second, so that's why I didn't like react. That was kind of stupid of me. Never assume. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to, you know, hear someone else's thoughts on the SNES Classic, maybe someone who's actually played the SNES Classic. And I feel like that'd be the only difficult thing about doing, like, a show by myself, just because, you know, it's not like I would get feedback directly from someone, like, verbally to me. It'd be more so, like, you know, when if viewers come in, they could, like, put their input on it, and maybe, you know, if one of them were to have played it. But, you know, not saying the chances of that are slim, but, you know, especially when growing. I don't know if that's a good thing to do, but it's something I'm considering doing. Just because, like, I guess I listen to a lot of podcasts. Like, part of my like work day, like I would say half of it, if not more, is probably listening to podcasts while I work. Just because I work in an environment where listening to podcasts is pretty viable. Granted, there's some areas of my building I work in where I don't get very good signal, so that's why I would say only half. But yeah, I mean, I got one more challenge. But you know, it's just one of those things that are quite interesting. You know, I'm not saying I watch like small like podcasts or streams that do like little shows, but I feel like it's one of those things that, you know, you build upon as you do it more and more. I'm not saying because just playing Destiny by itself is, you know, not beneficial, but I think, you know, if you look at the directory, I mean, it's like how many people, if you probably look at their title right now because it's the weekend, are either doing trials carries or they're just doing trials with viewers. And just trying to do something else that isn't the norm, but like if, you know, Destiny's here like in the background and then doing something else. You know, I've always considered trying to find, you know, someone maybe to co-host with and do like a co-stream. Granted, I'm very small, so it's like even trying to ask some, you know, even trying to like just like talk to someone, let alone like I've never been a very strong Twitch chatter, like actually chatting in Twitch, like when I don't have like a microphone in front of me. It's just something about doing that. I don't know, you'd figure you'd be more comfortable typing words than actually saying words, if that makes any sense. And that's kind of where I'm at. I feel like I could be better. You know, I could be better with like talking over a microphone than actually typing. And a lot of times too, you know, I don't want to go into a stream and just start talking and then, you know, it's like one of those things, like how do you bring something up? Because, you know, you never want to go into someone's stream and like self-promote yourself. And I, you know, if I want to try to collab with somebody, it's like in a weird way, like I'd have to either message them off stream or off to the side. But, you know, it's just one of those things that, you know, just like if you were to ask someone out or something like that on a date, and it's like just that intimidation factor of, you know, getting rejected, because, you know, getting rejected is not, no one wants that to happen, especially when you're trying to grow and collaborate with people, like trying to get rejected. But at the same time too, you know, I can't target someone who's like, you know, like 100 viewers more than I am, just because that won't work. Just because like I don't, you know, they, in a weird way, it would be like them almost carrying me, just because, you know, they have an established thing. And if I'm the person proposing this to somebody and, you know, I'm not established in that sense, it's like, it's pretty much I'm asking that person to carry me to help promote myself. And, you know, it's one of those things, like, in a weird way, as much as you try to become friends with someone, say on Twitch, it's that weird aspect of that person may be thinking themselves like, well, I haven't really talked to this person, and you know, they're being super like friendly. I feel like in a weird way they're trying to take advantage of me. And that's even saying, you know, me talking to someone who's even got 10 viewers, you know, where I'm just like pretty much still streaming to myself. Granted, you know, I should network. You know, network is good for the channel and growth, but you know, it's still trying to find that common ground about what to, you know, how to approach it. You know, it's just not something, you know, you can like learn. It's just something you just got to do with practice. You know, it's like the same way of, you know, doing like a work project with somebody, you know, or asking someone for like, you know, help in something that, you know, you may not know too well, or damn it, I missed. But I don't know, it's just one of those things that's like weirdly tricky, but I feel like I have to kind of like do something for myself as a streamer, and if I feel like this is one of those steps that I may want to do, if I want to grow, and I don't know. Granted, I'd be honest, in like X amount of weeks I've been streaming, I haven't really went out and made friends in the streams. And you have really bad aim, sir. Alright, you finally got me with the sword. Finally got me. I don't know. You know, it's like a lot of times too, it's like I stream for pretty much until the point where I get tired, and you know, pretty much once I end the stream, I get up and go to bed. And like trying to find someone to collab with, you know, it's very, you know, it's like very nerve-wracking, because like, you know, it goes on that same concept. Like I'm not anybody of any significance, so it's me trying to like reach out to someone of significance of some sort. It's just overall overwhelming. Like, as much as as much as there's like, you know, it's trying to find things to do that make you stand out, and you know, there's only so much you can do with one singular game. And you know, it's like, I really enjoy Destiny 2. I feel that if I were to try to stream anything else, I just wouldn't enjoy it as much. And you know, this market's like very competitive. It's very saturated right now. I only imagine come October 27th, it's going to become just as much saturated, just because the release of PC, it opens up the doors to more PC people who strictly game on PC. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if more Leviathan-sized streamers who only stream on PC make their way over to playing Destiny once it comes out. You know, and a lot of people who maybe play like Blizzard games and whatnot, because now it's on, you know, the Battle.net, you know, it's like there, and you know, these people may be interested in actually like playing, you know, Destiny, and now it's on PC, Blizzard.net, you know, they trust that, and they're like, okay, well, I'm game. You know, it's gonna be a real crowded directory for, I would say, at least some time. Who knows, it could be pretty much popular until you know, the first DLC comes out, and then it gets another resurgence. Like, I feel in a weird way the only reason why they actually separated the launches, not, you know, maybe the PC did require like a little extra effort to, maybe a little extra effort to, you know, polish and whatnot. I feel like in a weird way it was done intentionally, just also to keep that momentum going. You know, it's just like one of those things that's like, well, how do you keep a game that has the same content relevant? Because it's going to take, you know, us, I would say, it's going to take them, I don't know, X amount of time to actually get the new DLC out. So if you think about that, and so it's gonna take, you know, till January to get the next thing in DLC. You launch Destiny in September, then you relaunch it on the PC a month later, builds up that hype all over again, because, you know, there's gonna be people who maybe stop playing right now, and then they pick it back up in October and they start fresh, because then like, okay, well, this is actually where I want to play it as the home, you know, game. So they're gonna be playing on PC, and that's gonna create another wave of, say, newer people who maybe are like, you know, maybe they don't have a console and they, you know, they wanted to pick up streaming, and they see, oh, Destiny 2 came out PC, you know, I'm gonna hop in and try to get my feet wet. Sorry, I'm just kind of healing the glue off my calendar, just because I kind of got to that point where I've gotten through the last quarter of the calendar, so I have like this quarter-inch layer of glue. You know, I would, you know, it's gonna be great because, you know, there will be a resurgence in the community. There'll be a bunch of new people probably checking it out for the first time, just because, you know, not saying, you know, there are those people who probably would not check out, you know, say Destiny 2 just because it's a PC, it's a console game, and, you know, people are like that. They won't check out a console game because it's, you know, they play PC exclusively. Not saying that's, you know, I mean, granted, in my personal opinion, I find it to be kind of like weird, but, you know, people play, you know, look at games and watch games on Twitch that are relevant to, you know, the platform they play on. You know, and it's just one of those things that, if I could stairs, it's just one of those things that come with it. You know, like, and a lot of people like PC games, and, you know, there's a decent amount of streamers who strictly only play PC. You know, it's just one of those things. I feel like I'm just saying the same thing over and over again, but, I don't know, I think playing, you know, Destiny 2 on a PC is gonna be a completely different experience. You know, I think it honestly opens up a lot of avenues, not just for, you know, like it will create this new audience of people that are going to be coming into the directory and pretty much seeing, I feel like, Destiny 2 for the first time, because I granted, when I first started playing Destiny 2 and I had a person come by, they personally have never even heard of Destiny 2. Like, it was like, they were like, oh, what game are you playing? And they couldn't even tell, like, off the bat that it was Destiny 2. Granted, I don't think they were messing with me, just because they kind of seemed intrigued, like they didn't know what they were really watching. You know, that's how, you know, I believe that person probably strictly just plays on PC, and, you know, they don't find interest in playing games on console because that's not where they normally play. Like, you probably wouldn't, I mean, maybe you'd watch, like, an exclusive game that may be only on console, but you wouldn't watch a multi-platform console game if you're, you know, that's like multiplayer driven or something like that, if you strictly only play PC. Granted, unless you follow a particular like streamer, that's the only time I can probably see you actually like watching like a non-PC game. But other than that, like if you're following a particular streamer, you're probably not going around looking for console games on your own. You'd kind of like probably brought into it through some other source. And I mean, not saying that's a problem, but like I said, you know, with it coming to PC, I feel like it's just going to create this new part of this community that really wasn't there. And, you know, it's going to be even probably tougher to actually get noticed or get discovered. Oh. Move. I don't know. It's just very tough to actually really put a finger on how the community is going to react. For all you know, the dynamic of the actual Destiny community could overall change. Just because, you know, like because Destiny wasn't like an exclusive like console game, it, you know, it established like this, I guess, console-centric, you know, mind in a lot of people's heads about Destiny itself. You know, it's one of those things that I feel like it's going to take time for the people on the PC to probably catch up. Not saying that they won't, but it's going to be one of those things where people are gonna have questions. You know, like I said, this will probably be like, I mean, granted, there's still people who's, you know, this is their first ever Destiny experience, even though they've played it on a console. You know, maybe they were one of those people who had a PS3 the time Destiny came out. You know, they heard about what happened, they eventually got a next-gen console, and then they were like, well, you know, Destiny was by then old news, and, you know, they didn't want to go purchase an old game, so therefore they never played Destiny 1. Or they heard, you know, not so great things about it when it first launched, and they were like, well, why would I want to play something that, you know, people don't like, you know? You know, people don't want to play something that, you know, people hate it. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So why would you want to waste money on something that, you know, people hate it? Granted, I feel at the same time, too, the perception of reviews and things like that sometimes skew the way people should think about a game. You know, just because one person may have not been the biggest fan. Granted, I could see, you know, if the general consensus of all the reviewers were that they probably didn't really like it. You know, I could see that, you know, kind of being the thing, but like just because, you know, a handful or two of people out of, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people that reviewed a certain game don't like a game, doesn't mean it's a terrible game. Unless for some reason you could say you have a perfect track record with, you know, if this person didn't like it, you played the game, you didn't like it. Like if you could say that about most of the games that they played, well then, you know, maybe you have a couple people. Like, you don't just look at one reviewer, you look at, I would say, 4 or 5 reviewers, and, you know, you look at you get a group consensus of what they all think. And I would say, you know, maybe pick, you know, if you're picking out a person who reviews games, maybe pick out like 4 or 5 people who review games, or 4 or 5 different sites that review games, and you make those like your sites you check for every single game that you're considering about playing. And, you know, you kind of like, well, if 3 of the websites like it and 2 of them don't, well, the general consensus is that it's a 60% favorable. So there's a 60% chance that if you base off your your idea about buying the game over that, well, there's a 6% chance that you may like it because 3 people liked it and 2 people didn't, or because a lot of times with your bigger publications and stuff like that, generally the same people don't review the games. So you may be looking at Xbox games and then there may be like 10 different people who review Xbox games. I would say you try to find like maybe like a person on YouTube, and you find like a couple, I would say 4 or 5 different people on YouTube to see if they like it or not. And I would say that would be your best way to figure out if you should buy something. Just because, they'd probably be better off because, it's the same people over and over again reviewing it. Like, what is, I think, the Angry Gamer? I think he's a guy, he's the one who says the buy, wait, for sale, rent, or never touch. You follow him and follow like 4 other people who maybe have like some other method of figuring out if it's game to buy or get. I mean, at the same time too, also you have to consider, you're spending $60, like think of this, you're spending $60 on Destiny 2. Yes, it has I would say probably a 6 to 10 hour campaign, depending how long you take and how many if you don't skip cutscenes and how quickly you want to get through it. I would say it probably takes about 6 to 10 hours, give or take on the player. And you got 6 to 10 hour solo campaign, and then you can probably grind up to like where I'm at by yourself, because where I'm at pretty much for the most part by myself, other than running the raid for the first time last weekend. And I probably put in a decent amount of time. I have 3 max level characters, all different classes. I have 3 or 5 three classes, all different, or one of each class at max level. And I can honestly say that if I did the campaign 3 times, I've geared them up decently, and I could honestly say I think I probably spent 100+ hours in Destiny 2. And in my personal opinion, if I think about it, I would say for $60, getting 100 hours of gameplay, if not more, out of it, I think is honestly worth it, in a game. Granted, not everyone's looking for that, in-depth. I'm not saying Destiny is super in-depth, but it's, I would say that it's, involved, and that, for playing a game that has like this open world and post-game content, I would say it's pretty solid overall of a game, to spend $60 on. Not everyone likes action I would say this is more of a first-person shooter action RPG style game. Not everyone's gonna be a big fan of that, but if you like action RPG games and you like shooting, like a first-person shooter, and I would say you should at least give Destiny 2 a try. Whether regardless you're gonna play like post like max level content, I would say for $60 playing like a 6 to 8 hour for playing a 6 to 8 hour content single player, I would say it's still pretty solid, because I mean there's still just basic single player games by themselves, and that's how long their story is. And I'm not saying this is probably the best single player, the story is pretty decent, but there is a story and there's like very good looking cutscenes. And Bungie, I would say, is that developer that has that prestige to them, because as convoluted, or as not convoluted, as crazy as, or non, it didn't make sense of a story that Halo had at certain points. You know, I would say overall Halo was so much better in Bungie's hands than it was, I would say, in 343. I can honestly say I didn't, you know, I really wanted to get Halo 5, and then I played Halo 4, and I just couldn't get into, I just couldn't get into the story. You know, it was like kind of one of those things. It's like kind of like when they wrapped things up in Halo 3, it almost seemed like they were forcing the story to go on. Whereas, I'm not saying they should have like relaunched it, but I feel like overall it would have probably, I think it would have maybe been overall better if they, you know, they kind of, you know, put their own spin on it rather than try to continue it and make it make sense. You know, there's only so much you can do with a single genre. I'm gonna say that's probably why, like, you know, every time there's like a new Final Fantasy, it's never like the same universe. It's always like whenever they do a new solid number, it's always a new cast of characters. They're never the same. And I don't know, as much as they continued Destiny 1's story to Destiny 2, because they didn't carry over your character, other than the fact that your Destiny 2 character looked like your previous character if you chose to do that. It didn't really have, they kind of like threw out last Destiny story and they kind of just went like almost like a refresh. And I'm not saying, you know, we still don't know if Destiny is going to follow the same route Destiny 1 did. Like, we're going to play, you know, Destiny 1 for like 3 years and then get another Destiny. Like, I don't know if there's going to be a Destiny 3 or if there's going to just, you know, now that we have Destiny 2, they're just going to continue building on it. We don't know. And you know, it's one of those things that's hard to it's hard to really put a needle or pin on it, you know, trying to like pinpoint whether or not, you know, how they're gonna go about it. But in all honesty, I still think at the end of the day, if you just pick up Destiny 2, even just to play the solo player and never play like DLC or anything, I still think you get quite the experience out of it. You know, and who knows, just by playing the thing, you know, you get kind of like used to all of what's going on. And you may actually realize you enjoy Destiny 2. I don't know. It's I would say it's one of those things that it's kind of tricky. Like you kind of have to like play it out. I can't believe I got that as my like weapon. It's like Xur's weapon and it's garbage. most grenade launchers are really bad. What else? You know, one thing that's pretty crazy is like the craziness that's going on about right now between Fortnite and like PUBG. I would say, you know, in a general idea, I would say both those games are quite similar from what I've seen, like, because like the way the game mode actually works. But in like finer details, each one's extremely more difficult than the other. I would say that, you know, Fortnite is like the basic version, and like Fortnite is kind of like the Heroes of the Storm, whereas PUBG is like the Dota and the League of Legends, where it may look easy on paper, but in reality there's so much depth to it that's like crazy, because, you know, when you're first playing like Fortnite, you kind of know, you know, you just pick up weapons and you shoot and kill things. When you play PUBG, you kind of have to like, there's many layers of like gear and things like that, and then there's attachments, and I don't know. I would say they're as similar as they are, they're very different. Oh, punch my mic. Didn't mean to. Now where was I in my discussion? Yep. You know, at the end of the day, between PUBG and Fortnite, I feel like they're like one of those genres that they're as big as they are now. They're, you know, they'll sit up there, I think, where they are for quite a while. You know, we really don't know, other than the general basis of Fortnite having a battle royale mode, if they're gonna really expand upon it anymore, get more in depth, or if it's just a general mode and, you know, just to, you know, get some people to play Fortnite. And then we already kind of have an idea of what PUBG is gonna do. You know, eventually, you know, they're gonna expand upon what they they're gonna expand upon what they did in you know, there's gonna be another map or so, and, you know, I feel like as it gets closer and closer to when they want to actually launch it, I feel like it's gonna be, you know, when it's a finished product, it's gonna become this like fine-tuned machine that is hopefully gonna run properly. Because I mean, that's another thing too. I would say, from what I've seen, there's probably less jank to Fortnite than there probably is PUBG. Granted, I think Fortnite's had is right now, I think they've implemented something, but, you know, they've been more susceptible to cheaters and aimbots. But I noticed the other day when I was playing that I actually saw someone in the match get the ban hammer. I don't know if that, you know, I'm gonna assume they actually got banned because they got caught cheating or doing something they shouldn't have been doing. I don't know. I feel like Fortnite's like that alternative to playing PUBG if you can't afford or can't buy PUBG. But I feel like if you want to get the true experience and kind of get that really like real sense of what it's all about, I would say you should probably play PUBG. Yet again, this is even coming from me, who I haven't personally played PUBG, but I feel like over time, because as complex a battle royale game is, Fortnite's probably the simpler of the two. Like there's a general basis of, you know, you're last man standing, but there's not too much depth as to, you know, like, I mean, there's some depth, but I wouldn't say it's as drastic depth as like PUBG would be. Like PUBG's got vehicles and all that stuff, whereas Fortnite's just kind of like guns, and you can build ramps and walls and things to actually protect yourself or get up places. But other than that, I still think, you know, PUBG's gonna be the one who's gonna reign supreme, at least, you know, for now, unless, you know, Fortnite decides to shift and do something even more drastic, but you never know. Yet again, they may do something to PUBG that honestly just kills the game, because, you know, they may think they're gonna fix something, but then instead they either break stuff, or they, you know, they like nerf something or do something that pretty much ruins the game, and then there's that drop off because people, you know, it's unbearable to actually it's one of those things where, you know, you just gotta, I'm trying to think of how I want to put this. I have no idea. So where was I going with this? I was going somewhere with my conversation. So, okay. Now I know how to get back to where I want to go. So, I have a very tiny, like, YouTube channel, which is primarily, like, I don't really post. I really should start posting on a more consistent basis, but I kind of, you know, I'll post something here and there, and then sometimes I'll make, like, a dedicated, like, I'll make like a dedicated like video on like a weekend. Try to do it at least once a week. Like last weekend I didn't do it, but I feel like I made up for that because this past week I posted 2 videos. Granted, one was more of like a Twitch highlight, and the other one's more of just a clip I took of some of my one Twitch stream. I just had like interesting kill in Cuphead, and then the other one was just you know, I just took some of my PvP moments and I just kind of clipped it into like a video. But anyway, besides that, so I made a video probably back in January of this year about the Nintendo Switch, and you know, like my initial impressions of it. And I made the video, not like trying to be clickbaity or anything, but I made the video based upon what they pretty much explained to us. That I thought it was going to be very, very doom and gloom, because out of what we got out of that press conference, we only got one, I would say, major title that would make everyone excited, and that was Zelda. But other than that, as for announcements of games, we really didn't get too much more in the way of initial like launch depth. We did get like a, you know, we got like the first, like, I would say 4 or 5 months of games. I think we may have gotten the Mario Odyssey teaser in that, but we got the announcement that it wasn't going to be until, like, you know, October. But, you know, it was just one of those things that I wasn't very pro, I would say, I wasn't very pro Nintendo Switch. I would say that based upon if they don't really announce anything or have anything to really follow this up and fill in those gaps that I felt left out when they were announcing the Twitch stuff. Damn it. When they were announcing the Switch stuff, I wasn't super duper excited. Like, I made the video saying how I think in a weird way at the time that, or how I thought at the time that I think it was doomed off the bat. You know, granted, in theory, great concept for a console. You know, on the go type thing, you know, portable, yada yada yada. But with actual, like, lack of third-party support, let alone a very soft launch lineup, I didn't think the system itself had much of a fighting chance. I thought it was going to be in the same boat as, say, like the Wii U. You know, the Wii U showed promise, but a lot of what it was trying to do was very muddled and also like the launch discussion. I feel like that in one area, like when it comes to Nintendo, they don't have a very solid way of almost like they're not very good, I would say, in trying to like announce things. Like they've never had like a very great, I would say, presentation, especially for launches. Like they usually show like those videos of, you know, the most like they show like those videos of people playing Nintendo Switches in their living room with the whole family and everyone's like, yeah. But they don't have they never like present it to the consumer like in a very like optimistic kind of way. Like they're all like, you know, they're very far-fetched. Like I think the Switch they showed that video of this guy who's playing in his living room, and then across the cityscape or across to the next building, his buddy's like, hey, come on over, and then he picks up his Switch and then he's playing Switch on a rooftop. I mean, unless I don't know many people who have rooftop parties. I didn't, you know, I feel like that's like a TV show thing. You know, it's not something that seems like actually, you know, people actually do, but you never know. There could be people who do rooftop things. But you know, it's just one of those things. Like you never know. And like I said, I made a video, you know, based upon it. They had third-party developers on there, but you know, none of them really seemed super committed. It was like we launched the console and we're just gonna wait and see what happens. And I'm gonna say, you know, that's always been Nintendo's like major problem. When they announce consoles, they never really have that like great third-party support. And it honestly seemed like they were gonna make that same mistake again. You know, they didn't really like. They had a couple people from, you know, the big companies come on. It's like, hey, yeah, making Switch games, but you know, it was like Bethesda making Skyrim for the 100th time, and it was EA saying, yeah, we got FIFA, but you know, we didn't get any like crazy super lineup like of games or whatever. It was kind of like just very vague, or very not very. I just said not very very meh, you know, initial response. And you know, my general consensus was, if you know they were to keep this up, I would say that the Switch is doomed. I mean, we flashed it today. I mean, Switch is definitely very viable. You know, is probably, you know, doing very well. It's doing very well, but you know, they had a very successful launch, and the only one good thing is, because their launch was so successful, I think, you know, a lot of these third-party developers that they had on board were like, well, we're gonna wait and see. We're not gonna commit. You know, I don't think Bethesda really committed. I think they were just more of a, all right, well, we're gonna bring Skyrim to the Switch. Yet again, it still hasn't come out. But we're gonna bring Skyrim, and we're gonna wait and see for the rest of it. And then, you know, Switch comes out. It sells, I think, we're around 5 million units right now. It's probably gonna have a really strong holiday season, because it's probably gonna be that one system that everyone wants. And you know, my consensus is that I wasn't gonna buy it at launch. I was gonna wait until, you know, this time of year, and wait for a bundle. And you know, I'll actually be honest with you. I just actually went on to Amazon, and because I saw like a Twitter message saying GameStop or IGN saying that they had Switches in stock, and I pre-ordered a Super Mario Odyssey bundle. Hopefully it arrives the date it says it's gonna arrive. You never know. But I pre-ordered that. So I was, see, when it comes to hardware, I've always been day one. Granted, I would say this generation I wasn't day one Xbox, and now I wasn't day one Switch, but I was on that team of, you know, show me what you got. And I feel like, you know, Nintendo's honestly shown promise of what they can, you know, what they're gonna bring. I mean, granted, we're kind of at that point, you know, Super Mario Odyssey's coming out, and eventually, you know, we'll get another first party. We don't know exactly what it's gonna be, but we'll get another first party of some sort. But yeah, you know, it's gonna be one of those things that we'll just have to wait and see. You know, there's things on the horizon. You know, they flashed like at E3 a Metroid banner. We know there's gonna be some sort of Pokemon game. Like they flashed us some sort of promise of, you know, these hopeful things. but yet again, we kind of have to wait and see if these things are going to live up to the hype. Because I mean, they've brought, you know, franchises like Pokemon to Switch before, but you know, they never, you know, they weren't what the hardcore like Pokemon fans wanted. They were more tuned for like your younger generation. I mean, granted, I've heard them say they're going to bring that true Pokemon experience to the Switch. Yet again, I don't know what that entails. Because I mean, we've had countless Pokemon games before on a console, but they're just not, you know, anything worthwhile. I don't know. I mean, to kind of like transition on that, I made a similar video because shortly, I think after, or I don't even think they announced anything, but I know around this time Xbox had kind of like information had leaked about the Xbox Scorpio was a thing. Actually, never mind. It couldn't have been. Xbox Scorpio was already announced. So I made a video about how I also thought Xbox Scorpio was doomed. And, you know, that's one of those videos. I'm not saying, you know, it wasn't. I don't think it was gonna be that big thing that was gonna change the landscape of. It wasn't gonna change the landscape of the console generation. It was just, you know, I had that same exact feeling after the PlayStation Pro launched, that it was just going to be the same exact thing, that it was just going to be another marginal upgrade from, you know, the original console generation. And you know, it didn't have titles that enticed it didn't have the titles that enticed, you know, me to want to go out and really want it for the gaming aspect. I mean, the true reason why I would want to get it, if I want to get it for any reason, would be because, you know, I've been looking into 4K Blu-ray players. I own a 4K television, and if I can buy a Xbox X, you know, for $500 and get a console and a 4K Blu-ray player out of it, it honestly sounds like a win, because just to buy a 4K Blu-ray player, I think is probably I would say it's probably like $300. They may be cheaper. It's been a while since I've actually like looked, but you know, for like you know, if it was $300 for a 4K Blu-ray player, and that's just like minimum, and then, you know, for another $200 I get an Xbox out of it that plays like 4K video games. That's great. But the other thing too is that they didn't have like a first-party exclusive that wowed me, razzle-dazzled me, you know, made me say, you know what, I need an Xbox X because of this. You know, they didn't have that game. Like, they had a couple exclusives lined up, but in reality, a lot of them fell apart. You know, they were supposed to be things, but then, like, take Scalebound, for instance, it was supposed to be this next first-party game for the console, and they canceled it. And then, you know, it's nothing against Forza, but I'm not a very big racing fan, so Forza's not in my wheelhouse of games I typically want to play, let alone it's the Forza that's like the most like actual racing cars, like it's the most simulation, whereas Forza Horizon's like more of that, like, You know, there's a little more arcadey aspects to it. You do like, I feel like you do a little bit more crazier stuff. And that's not, you know, it's not what I would want to purchase and want to like buy a system for. You know, I think they had I think Shadow of War is an Xbox X, has an Xbox X patch. As much as they advertise that it's Xbox X, I'm sure there's a PS4 Pro version. I'm not, you know, it's like, sure, but, you know, it's just one of those things. It's like, that one, in my personal opinion, I feel like is not going to be a huge success. Yes, there's going to be those people who are going to go out, the hardcore Xbox guys are going to go out and buy their Xbox X. But in my personal opinion, you know, I don't see a need to own that day one. You know, I may just hold off until like the next generation, because it's like, you know, you're not really, you're just portioned to 4K fidelity. You know, it's not like I was asking for that. You know, it's not like a very big need of mine right now. You know, it's like that way for, you know, that in general, you know. You know, it's like the hardcore are the only ones who are going to want to really buy it. You know, no one's going to really want to... you know, it's not to... I don't want to be like the villain, because, you know, Xbox is a solid console. You know, it's great for shooters and things like that. But I feel like this generation, you know... PlayStation has innovated. Sorry. I feel like it has innovated more on a lot of their first party exclusives, whereas Xbox has kind of just repeated what they've already done. You know, Halo was just more Halo. Gears of War, more Gears of War. I know people liked it, but, you know, that came and went. You know, a lot of their new stuff just didn't, like, hit. Like that Quantum Break game, Recore. I would say Halo Wars 2 has, like, a dedicated base, but it's not, like, you know, not many people play strategy games. What else? I mean, actually one of my favorite games that wasn't exclusive was Sunset Overdrive. I honestly thought that was like such a great game. Honestly, that's the only reason why I bought the console. It was just because I couldn't get that on my system. You know, I had to go out and get an Xbox just to play that game, and I got the Xbox that came with it. You know, it came with it, so it wasn't like, you know, I went out of my way. And then I bought the Master Chief Collection, but I wasn't buying, like, you know, last generation I was more split in between, you know, buying for both. This generation, it's like I haven't had that desire or want to buy a game exclusively for that console. But, like, you know, this generation I could say I have that desire for the PlayStation, and then right now I have that desire for the Switch, because there are great titles out there for the Switch. Like, you know, Zelda is, you know, you can only find Zelda on the Switch. Mario Odyssey, only found on the Switch. As much as they are the same old, you know, Nintendo has ways of taking their same products that they've been using for the past 20 years and then reinventing, like, the wheel of them. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, it's probably like 30 years. And they've taken that and they've figured out a way to how to reinvent it, reinvigorate it, and do something different than they did the previous time. You know, Xbox, I feel like, because they're younger in that generation, like, you know, Nintendo, even PlayStation, I still feel like it is sometimes in that same wheelhouse as like Xbox. But Nintendo knows how to take those big iconic characters and make them relevant, no matter no matter what you play the games on. What you play the games on? No matter what console you play it on. I feel like PlayStation does a very good job of taking, making new characters and creating very interesting like franchises out of them. Granted, I would say as a whole, since PlayStation has taken original franchises they've had back in the PlayStation, and like the developers that have developed those games, they don't make those games anymore. They've taken what they've learned from making those games and they evolved over time. Like, to think that the company who made Crash Bandicoot made Uncharted and The Last of Us is like very, like, if you really were to put side by side, to be like, the company who made this cartoony Bandicoot style game made this post-apocalyptic zombie-esque play kind of game that had a very deep story and deep this, and the very first game was like just you run down a level, smash boxes, and collect the crystals. It's like one of those things that, like, when you really think about it, it's like, wow, it's like, and it's not like, The Last of Us, Crash Bandicoot's still a very solid game. There's a lot to Crash Bandicoot rather than just, as much as just a simple, like, platformer-esque kind of 3D platformer thing. It's, there's more to it than that just on paper, There's kind of like a weird, quirky story to it. And stuff, but, something about Crash Bandicoot is just, like, when they made it back in the day, you could tell that, they still put care and everything, like, they just didn't put, like, the crates in random places and just, like, expected you to find it out. I feel like in a weird way, when you're, like, really go through and try to, like, 100% the game, each one of those crates have been put in, like, a meaningful place to make them relevant as to why you need to, go down this pathway and smash, you need to smash these crates, like the idea of, like, once you beat the whole game, you can go back to pretty much every level and do, like, a speed run through that level and try to collect, like, a relic based upon, like, a little time trial you did on levels. So it's like they built, like, the game to generally get through it to get to the end, and then they built, like, almost like a speed run of the game in each level, like almost like little time trials. And then you kind of get into, like, Jak and Dexter's, where they take what they learned from Crash Bandicoot, and then at the time, it was like this semi-open world in, like, in Jak and Dexter, and then, like, as it got to the third one, it became, like, this more, like, open world, kind of, like, because, like, Grand Theft Auto kind of, like, introduced, like, like, this live-in open world type thing. And then, they finished Jak and Dexter after 3, and then they were like, okay, well, PlayStation 3 is about to launch, so we're gonna, go back to the drawing board, and they came up with, like, Uncharted, and Uncharted's pretty much this, like, modernized, deep story Indiana Jones. If you really think about it, it's just Indiana Jones, but Nathan Drake, and it's like this other kind of story. And they developed that franchise, and they got to the third one, and they were like, let's do something else. Granted, they didn't shelf Uncharted 3, which they could have after 3. They didn't have to technically try to figure out how they can do the story further, because if they ended Uncharted 3 where it was, they kind of closed the door a little bit. They kind of reopened that door back up to kind of, like, make Uncharted Story 4 work. Uncharted 4 story work. Yeah, there we go. Words. But then they were like, well, let's try something else. Like, you could say, I mean, in a weird way, Last of Us, borrows some things from Uncharted, but at the same time, too, there's certain things that Uncharted 4 borrows from The Last of Us that, And you know, it's they took the story, like the story-driven version of Uncharted, and they expanded on it even more, and then they did this like very expansive deep story, like they get like this like little survival-esque kind of aspect to it. Damn. It's very survival, you know, you're very limited, you know. Uncharted, you can run through a level, you have like a gun, and then you just have like tons and tons of ammo. But like Last of Us, it's like you have to put thought into what you're doing. You just go through a level and run and gun. You know, you gotta use like your stealth aspects, you know, you have to. And, you know, they took what they learned from story like creation and they expanded upon it even further. And you know, it's just crazy to think that a studio that used to make a game about a bandicoot that used to like be like a very obnoxious like mascot into like to go from that and then go into like a very, you know, I would say that you know, Last of Us has like that very, very, you know, there's a following to it. I wouldn't, you know, say that like there's a community of people that just go and like, I'm sure there's probably a community that probably speedrun it, but you know, there's that community that, you know, they played the crap out of like Uncharted, Last of Us. You know, they trophied it, got all those things. You know, they put it on the shelf, but you know, once they know that second one's coming out, they're probably gonna play the crap out of it. You know, and they're probably not like super worried that, you know, we made, you know, it's gonna be a while until we see probably Last of Us 2. But you know, they're not gonna like whine and complain that it hasn't come out yet because they're not gonna whine and complain that it hasn't come out yet because they know that it's gonna take time to make it like perfect or live up to the standards of, you know, it's a very big challenge to live up to the standards of like the first one that was, you know, many people thought it was this, you know, 10 out of 10 game and perfect and the story and this and that. And, you know, those are, you know, it's like maybe that's kind of like, you know, that the joke, you know, they're making Half-Life 3, you know, it's, you know, Half-Life 3 has gotten to this point that if they ever were to come out with it, I feel like it would never live up to that hype that that, you know, that the fans have built up for it. You know, there's almost like this like platform or pedestal that I feel like there's this platform or pedestal that, you know, they put the game on, that the fans have, and you know, the longer that there's like a delay in it, you know, it's going to build up this crazy hype that there's no way that, you know, the game that's going to come out is going to make whatever fan happy or, you know, oh god. You know, the same thing can be said for anything. It's like, the longer you take in between games, or, you know, if the game is like very well acclaimed, it's like, it's going to be very difficult to live up to the hype that game's going to build. I mean, the same thing can be said for any game in general, though. Like, you know, how many times did we get teased for, crap, what is it called? No Man's Sky. And, you know, when it finally came out, that game just didn't live up to what the people thought it was going to be. And it turned out, you know, many people off the bat were very, very upset with what that game turned out to be. Granted, I would say now what it is much different. And, you know, there's many people who probably enjoy it now, but because, you know, they promised all this stuff at launch, and it launched with none of, you know, a lot of the stuff that people built in their minds and stuff, many people were very frustrated. You know, they said this is an incomplete game, it was rushed, but, you know, because the game took so long, it built this expectation in their minds of what they wanted it to be. And, you know, it's tough to live up to a hype of something like that. Oh god, I don't know where that's coming from. Okay, I lost all my teammates. But it's like very hard to live up the hype of something that great. Because, you know, like a very well-established franchise is gonna have like these set expectations, and when, you know, a game doesn't live up to the expectations of that franchise, you know, it could honestly make or break the franchise. You know, alright, once it's too small. Like, take Mass Effect, for example. Mass Effect came out, and, you know, so Mass Effect came out, and people were, you know, the first one was great, second one was great, but you know, it just didn't live up to what people expected. When it came to the third one, you know, the ending really bothered a majority of fans. You know, it wasn't that way they wanted to close out, you know, the Shepard ending. They expected, you know, they wanted like different, you know, different ending. You know, it was, you know, that choice to randomly give you this, that, and whatever. It wasn't what people wanted. You know, and then, you know, people, you know, forgave them when they announced Mass Effect Andromeda, and then people got in their head that Mass Effect Andromeda was going to be, you know, their redemption. And then that game came out, and it launched with, you know, bad animations and this and that, and it put just a very sour taste into the fans of the series, and to the point where I believe BioWare closed the studio, or EA closed the studio that created BioShock and ended up merging them with another studio. But for right now, that franchise is on the shelf, and who knows what's going to return. I know BioWare is working on Anthem, and they're also working on another Dragon Age, probably. Because as much as, you know, at the end, you know, as much as, you know, Mass Effect gets praise, you know, there's also a very large and vibrant fan base for Dragon Age. I feel like in a weird way when Dragon Age came out, yes, it was a very big, expansive open world game, but it got lost 3 or 4 months later when The Witcher was launched, because, you know, Mass Effect was, you know, Dragon Age was like here, and then Witcher was like here with content. You know, it was just like above and beyond. You know, it's to think about putting in like 300 plus hours into that game and still not be like fully done with it is like completely crazy. And I enjoy the crap out I enjoy the crap out of Dragon Age, but yet again, it came out at a time when there was, you know, one too many open world games. Like, the common genre for a lot of games that come out now is like it has an open world, or you know, and that's, you know, it's tough, especially being older, to spend the time to want to play all these games, because, you know, unless you do streaming for a living, you don't have that time, because you have to focus on, you know, this and that. I don't know, it's just like one of those things. It's like, I don't think I'd ever be able to beat The Witcher 3, because I personally right now don't have the time. I mean, granted, maybe down the road, maybe I have like this little lull in between games, and, you know, I'm just gonna be like, hey, I'm gonna, you know, just focus and stream Witcher 3 for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, ever how long it takes. You know, if I ever were to become like a big streamer, you know, this becomes my full-time gig, you know, I can, you know, maybe I'll just be like, hey, you know, I have, you know, this is what I do now. I'm gonna stream Witcher 3 every Saturday and Sunday, and that's all I do for like the next like month or two, is just stream 2 days worth of Witcher 3 a week, and then do, you know, so and so the other. But, you know, it's just one of those things, like, as a common person who works a full-time job, and then, you know, I try to play like a lot of games, it's, you know, it's tough to balance. You know, it's hard to put in like a 300-hour game somewhere into your lineup of things. Yeah. Better Devils. I think Better Devils is good. Adaptive, well-rounded, reliable, sturdy projectiles, create an area effect detonation on impact. Alright. I like that. Better Devils as it is. Anyway, back to what I was saying. You know, and at the same time too, that's why, like, games like Overwatch and, you know, games where you can go in, play a game or two, and bounce out, and then like play that on the daily basis are so popular these days, because I feel like, as much as they don't discuss it, I feel like the rabid, you know, I would say you know, there's a group of children out there that play games, you know, on a basis, but like, you know, I feel like the general age group right now for video games has grown up. You know, a lot of the general age group of video gamers have full-time jobs, and they balance the life of full-time jobs, streaming, or full-time jobs, gaming, and doing whatever else in their personal life on a daily basis. And I honestly think that, you know, it becomes more and more difficult to, as much as you can say have disposable income to actually play these games, I feel like it's more and more difficult to actually go about doing that. You know, it's just one of those things that you just don't, that it's hard to figure out how to actually want to, you know, stream, or, you know, at the same time too, you know, when you're growing, I mean, you know, a lot of people say stream what you want and don't worry about numbers. But at the same time too, you have to be, you know, it needs like a way to be strategic, because you technically can't just stream. You know, you're a big fan of SimCity 2000. Sure, you can go ahead and stream it, but I would say there's not a very large group of people really looking for SimCity 2000. But at the same time too, I could see like, hey, you know, you play this game, and then maybe towards the tail end of your stream, you know, you build up this small community, and you're like, hey guys, you know, I kind of want to play some SimCity 2000. You know, you can join, you can stay, hang out, we can chat while I do it, because, you know, granted, I would say SimCity 2000 is probably not the most like sure, it's probably, you know, got some details you gotta iron out, but it's not like, you know, your first person shooting and you have to focus on the details. But, you know, it's just one of those things that, you know, it's just, it's a tough thing to kind of like figure out. You know, oh man, I am thirsty. A lot of talking. I'll be right back. Let me get a beverage. Let me get a beverage.
Bring back our lost archives.
Granted, I'm not really listening to anything other than music, but you know, back to what I was saying is, you know, it's very tough. Like, if you're not in like the business of video games and whatnot, to really have a lot of free time to actually play video games. You know, it's, I would say, as much as I'm excited about it and whatnot, you know, there's still like a weird, you know, I'm not 100% on, you know, I'm still like up in the air about it, about how like I can focus on streaming and at the same time, you know, hold on, I'm just trying to fix something real quick. I don't know. I was gonna do something, but I kind of don't feel like focusing right now. Crap, I kind of forgot where I was talking about, like what point I was talking about. Give them more. Seems kind of cool. Okay. Like, Like, I feel like one of the toughest things I can honestly say about playing video games as even like me, I mean, I grant that I only work like a 40-hour workday, but I can honestly say it's still very tough to balance like streaming and, you know, playing video games and whatnot. You know, it's like sometimes, you know, I come home from work and I'm exhausted and I just want to, you know, hang out, but at the same time too, if I want to, you know, say streaming seriously, you know, I just gotta buckle up and just kind of like focus as much as tired as I am, or, you know, I'm not saying, you know, I'm disappointed in a game, but like, you know, sometimes you just feel a little burnt out from like wanting to play video games. Like, I'll be honest, as much as I keep on bourbon. As much as I, as much as I love video games and, you know, I watch Twitch streams, you know, there's been points where, you know, I just I sit back and, you know, I just kind of like don't really, you know, I'll watch a lot of movies or do something like that, you know, because sometimes I just need to step away, I guess, from doing that stuff, you know, kind of like almost like build up that desire to want to play games again. And I'm not saying, you know, I do it a lot, but, you know, there's times where you're just kind of like, I'm not really in the mood, you know? You just kind of want to, like, hang back, take it easy. I'm not saying, you know, I plan on doing that anytime soon, but, you know, it's like, yet again, it's just like one of those things. It's like, I was thinking about it. I'm not saying I'm thinking about it now, but, you know, there could come a point in time when, you know, it's just like, it may, you know, just be whatever. Wow. Crucible, Iron Banner, Iron Burner. I don't know. It's just one of those things where, like, it's like hard to balance work, social life, streaming. You know, because I'm not saying, you know, I'm not the most sociable person, but at the same time too, you know, it's like every now and then it's like a friend hits me up and it's like, hey, you want to hang out? It's like, you know, it's like tough sometimes to like tell them no. I kind of, you know, want to be streaming or doing something else, because, you know, as much as, you know, say my friends into video games and stuff, you know, they don't understand, like, you know, taking the night off or stepping away. You know, it's just one of those things. It's like, I don't know, you know, if I should do that, or, you know, I almost in a weird way feel guilty if I were to step away from streaming to go to the movies or something. You know, I think, was it last week? I think it was last week. I think last week I took Thursday off to go see Blade Runner. Yeah, last Thursday I went and saw Blade Runner, and I honestly was thinking about it the whole time while I was watching the movie. It's like, as much as I want to be here watching Blade Runner, I personally don't. I'm not really, you know, I'd rather be more invested in, you know, streaming that night. But, you know, it was like my one friend and my other friend, and they were like, hey, let's go see Blade Runner. I'm like, I'm not going to tell them no. You know, they were talking, my one friend was talking about it pretty much since the trailer first launched about going to see Blade Runner, and at the time, you know, I wasn't streaming on a consistent basis just yet. So I was like, yeah, you know, when that movie comes out, I'll definitely be down. And you know, it finally rolled around, and I was like, as much as I really want to go see Blade Runner, it's like not really super emotionally invested in Blade Runner. You know, it's it's just one of those things. It's like, you know, I feel that when I stream, you know, and I'm not streaming, I kind of like, you know, it's like when you get a brand new video game, and you know, like, you get that brand new video game and you can't honestly not put it down for like ever. Like, you could sit down and play it for like an hour, and you can honestly think you're only playing it for an hour, but in reality you've played it for 5 hours. Like, I ran the raid last Saturday, and you know, it started at 11 o'clock at night, but you know, by the time we got done, it was 4 a.m. and as tired as I was content from actually finishing that raid. Like, you know, I went in and my idea was to finish the raid. One, because I don't raid often, so I wasn't sure, you know, when I was going to get the next opportunity to actually get it, and because it's still new, you know, we still, you know, it wasn't like I had one person, you know, there was that person who pretty much carried the whole raid, so it was still like fresh, you know, it was like still there's people learning and this and that. As much as I didn't go into it, you know, before, you know, the world first happened, that first like week of it, but I still got like that sense of like, you know, I felt accomplished. You know, I can now say I've completed the raid. I've done the Nightfall. I mean, pretty much the only thing I honestly haven't done yet in Destiny is probably Trials. You know, I feel like eventually I'll get to Trials. But yet again, I don't have a very large friend base when it comes to playing video games. My friend base is pretty much my one friend I was playing with earlier, so I don't know, you know, if any of you guys were on watching me play earlier. But, you know, it's pretty much just him, and, you know, half the time, you know, it's just me and him, and sometimes he's only on for like an hour, sometimes he's on for like a couple hours. But like a lot of times it's just me and him, and you know, for Trials you need 4 people, and you know, I don't, you know, neither of us have the means to really pull for, you know, 2 other people. I mean, granted, you can use an app, you can do this, you can do that, but you know, when you're doing stuff like that, you know, you don't know these people. You know, you're going into these things and you don't know any of these people. It'd be like almost like, you know, you're hiring for a job and you hire blind. You know, you just pick the first guy who applies to the job. You didn't bring him in for an interview. You were like, you know what, you applied, you're hired. You know, you didn't put any thought into it, and boom, you hire the man. You know, the same could, same could be said for for Twitch streaming. If, you know, Twitch pretty much made, you know, the requirements for anything like super simple, you know, you could have a person come on and, you know, give like, say either hate speech or something like, you know, crazy, and like, if you don't have them almost like filter themselves for, I don't know, if you don't have them like pretty much done like this like trial, like what I think is 500 minutes of, you stream for like 500 minutes before you have it, you know, you qualify in a sense for becoming an affiliate. I mean, in a weird way, I think it's there so that you can hopefully try to build some sort of establishment, because, you know, when you first start off, you don't have any viewers or anything, so, you know, you have to get yourself out there to hopefully become, you know, get people to want to come to your channel and subscribe or do whatever. And, you know, that's generally how, you know, that's how the Twitch affiliate program works, is that you pretty much you know, you stream to get yourself out there and like known, so that, you know, when the time does come that you get a sub button, you get this, you get that, you're established enough so that when you do get those things, that there's people who want to apply to them. Because you don't want to give someone who has nobody a sub button that makes them, you know, have people want to pay money to like subscribe to somebody, because no one's gonna want to subscribe to somebody who they don't know. And I feel like, you know, if you did it too early, you'd almost discourage people from wanting to, you know, from being upset that that didn't happen. You know, if someone didn't get their sub, you know, someone got a sub button but didn't get their first sub for like a week and a half or something, you know, or not a week and a half, like a year and a half. Like they started streaming and they had the sub button from day one, and they didn't get a sub until like year one in, like their first ever sub. You know, the likely chance of that person really even sticking around to that whole year until they got a sub, I would say is slim to none. Because it's honestly like I would say, even like me starting off, I would say right now, you know, it is sometimes, you know, makes me a little upset, a little depressed that, you know, I feel like in a weird way, maybe more so more recently than I did before. I feel like in a weird way, you know, I feel like I've improved, you know, but I understand that I'm in a tough directory, you know. I have 2 viewers, or it says I have 2 viewers, but in reality, it's, I believe, pretty much just me. It's just the way, I guess, Twitch's thing works somehow. I don't know. It's strange, but it says I have 2 viewers. So, and there's probably, I mean, granted, it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning my time. There's probably like still at least 1,000 plus Destiny 2 streamers, and there's, you know, there's people who are in the, you know, there are people that are in the couple hundreds. You know, someone has, you know, there's probably people that have like X amount, but you know, there's a good chunk of people that aren't established, and they're in this, like, they're pushed all the way down into the bottom. You know, it's just them, like this whole cluster of like all of us who are at 2 or 1 or 3. You know, we're all in these like really low single digit things, and we're like all in this cluster. So like, likely chance that someone's gonna come into my channel just randomly is very, very slim. I mean, granted, people come into the channel all the time. You know, there's a good chance someone could have popped in this whole time I've been discussing this. But the way the viewer thing works is that by the time I may have seen the viewer count go up or down, the person may have not been there anymore. I don't know if that's intentional, the way it works when it builds up slowly, or, you know, it's just hard to, it takes time for Twitch to pretty much recognize each one of those individual people in your channel. Not 100% sure, but, you know, it's just one of those things. It makes it, I guess, in a weird way, tough. You know, it sometimes makes it tough to come back on every day and want to stream. Granted, I would say that I initially went into tonight thinking that I was only going to stream, you know, like my normal time. Typically, I'm only on till I would get on like 8:30, and I streamed to probably about 11:30, 12 o'clock, and right now I'm actually about, you know, an hour and a half over what I normally would stream. But, you know, I feel like right now I'm at this good point where I'm just gonna, you know, just discuss and have a good chat. And I feel like in a weird way that me doing this is like a way for me to practice, you know. Like, I've watched a lot of content and things like that about people talking about their experience, and a lot of the one thing that comes up a lot is when you're small and you may not have a viewership or a very low viewership, this is the time you want to practice to, you know, practice you and practice what you represent, because, you know, if you do start growing, you know, you may not have this time to now practice, and, you know, you may grow slightly, you know, slowly over time, so you can keep on practicing little by little. But you never know when you're gonna strike. You know, lightning's gonna strike, and you may stream. You know, like this week I could be at 2 viewers, and for all I know, next week when I start streaming, I bump up to like 30 viewers. And I'll be honest with you, I've never, I think personally, had more than two or three people in my channel at one time. So, you know, I don't know how to personally react to like if a lot of people are talking a lot and that. I don't know how to, like, you know, it's kind of hard to like practice that. I mean, granted, I feel if I, you know, practice the way I'm practicing now, where I'm just talking to myself, talking out loud, talking through ideas, and, you know, kind of like, I don't know if you're noticing, but every now and then I kind of look towards my screen on my right. That's where my second monitor is, and that's where my chat is. So it's like one of those things. It's like I'm practicing, like if I were to have, you know, like 20 people in here and like 5 of them are talking like at once, and maybe they're asking questions or something, I can kind of pop over and I'm like practicing looking to my right and talking while I'm also streaming. Because, you know, I wouldn't say Destiny's like a super hardcore game or anything. I mean, there's a hardcore aspect to it, but I don't think it's like the most brain stressing game ever that you've played. You know, it's not like you play StarCraft or some other, like, you know, CSGO or some game where you need heavy centric like focus to what's going on around you. I mean, sure, I could probably, you know, focus a little bit more in Destiny, but at the same time too, you know, the reason why I do this is because, you know, I want, you know, I don't have many friends, and this is like my way to, you know, I'm hopefully gonna meet people, you know, and become friends with them. That's kind of the only thing I want to get out of like streaming in like a general aspect, you know. And then if the other aspect of streaming happens, then the other aspect of streaming happens. I'm not, you know, I could say one of my biggest blunders I think I've made is I ran a giveaway. That's how I got a majority of my followers now. But in reality, none of them are actually like real like viewers. Pretty much I ran a giveaway, and one of the giveaway things to get in was to follow the stream. And I haven't, you know, personally I haven't seen any of these people that followed in my stream. You know, it's not saying, you know, I'm expecting them to follow, you know, be in every single stream, but it hasn't technically in that sense paid off. You know, I did this giveaway, and, you know, it didn't, you know, out of the X amount of followers I did get, not one of them are a regular viewer. You know, they didn't like follow, win the contest, and be like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna regularly go view this guy. I didn't get that, and I feel like in a weird way I may have done it, you know, in kind of very prematurely. Maybe if I had, like, you know, some establishment of, you know, maybe if I had like 15 to 20 people in here at once, and, you know, I ran a giveaway, and like, you know, and the way it happened is that it kind of spread like wildfire. You know, those 15 to 20 people entered, and then, like, you know, it may have attracted more people to come in and view my stream. And I feel like maybe I started doing giveaways too early as a streamer. Like, I haven't built that viewer base yet to, even if it was like 5-10 people, I would, you know, maybe that would have been a better time to actually try a giveaway. But yet again, you never know. It could have, you know, it's the same thing. I could have done one at 5 to 10, you know, viewers at a time, and, you know, I could have gotten 200 followers, but at the end of the day, none of them, you know, stuck around to become part of like the crew or the, you know, the channel. You know, the other thing too is, like, you know, I'm still trying to find, you know, what my brand is. You know, granted, you know, my name is the Scar 43. I think if you currently follow, I believe, you know, it's a GIF of Scar from The Lion King. I'll be honest, the only reason why my username is Scar 43. like when I was younger, because of my last name, you know, my username is just like a nickname I was given to as a kid because my last name is a very complicated last name and it's not very easy to say. So, you know, people abbreviated my last name, and that's kind of how I got that nickname, you know, because it was just much easier to call me Scar, because Scar is actually the first 4 letters of my name, our last name. So it was like that nickname I got, and then 43 is just like, you know, it's one of my favorite numbers. So hence why 43. You know, and it's like, well, how do I take, you know, I gotta figure out how do I take that and then create it into something more, you know? You know, I feel like in a weird way, like, you know, I follow a big person I feel like in a weird way has influenced me as a streamer. Granted, I haven't like really reached out to him in any sense because I'm very small. I'm not, you know, why should he pay me any peace of mind? I'm not saying like, you know, it's not a thing to do, but a big influence on me so far, I would say, as I've been learning, you know, different practices on how to stream, is, you know, I've been really watching a lot of a guy, well, I'm sure he's well established as a Destiny streamer. His name is Say No to Rage. I'm sure you probably heard of him. I've been listening to his podcast and also watching his YouTube videos on Twitch streaming, and I would say he's honestly like a very, you know, in a weird way, he was a very, you know, he's been a very big influence on me streaming. Hey, how's it going? You know, I would say Say No to Rage is probably like a very big influence because, I mean, a lot of my practices and things like that are things that I've learned from him. Sorry, I'm just in a random discussion. I mean, if you want to pop in and say whatever, it's cool. No? Okay. Well, back to my discussion. So, I would say Say No to Rage is probably like a very big influence on me as a growing streamer, just because, you know, I've listened to his podcast and I've listened to pretty much the beginning of, I would say I probably listened to probably about half his podcast, and, you know, the tips and things that a lot of the streamers that he has on his podcast give are things that I kind of look into and build off of as a streamer. You know, the things you do, the things you don't do, and then I've also watched like some of his like different tip videos and things like that where he talks about one general aspect of streaming and how it relates to like growing your channel / brand. And a lot of it is very like instructional, you know, the do's, the don'ts, the has and the has-nots. And it's just like one of those things that, like, you know, when you're new to streaming, you don't exactly know how to really approach it. Like, you know, it's very, very intimidating to go into streaming and, you know, be in the bottom of a directory or just be in a directory in general and have people come in. You know, you just don't know how to approach, you know, talking to people you don't see face to face. Like, you know, it's different than talking to your friend that you may see every now and then, but you see him face to face. You know, talking to someone who's just text like letters. And it's very, you know, instructional how to like actually just approach this aspect, because you're pretty much talking to yourself. I mean, granted, you're talking to yourself because you're the only one verbally talking, but you're talking to the people who are talking via text message, I guess. You know, it's just one of those things that, you know, it's not common. That's why, like, when you're growing as a streamer, you may approach it to having people, you have people approach you to, you know, ask what you do. Like, I would say my parents who ask me, you know, what I'm doing. HRU. have no idea what HRU stands for. I feel like I'm that old person who doesn't know. No idea. I guess I'm that old person who has no idea what HRU stands for. I don't know that slang, or it could be a typo for all I know. But you play Destiny, Kazi? Granted, I don't know if that's. I feel like it's like one of those questions you ask that if I were to ask you if you play Destiny and you're in a Destiny channel, I feel like the likely chance that you play Destiny is probably 75-25. Okay. I'm doing well, you know, just I'm actually streaming a lot longer than I normally do, but just, you know, hanging out, playing some Destiny, doing some Iron Banner, nothing too crazy. You know, just grinding out some gear on some of my other characters. Tomo. Okay. Is there a reason why you like to be called Tomo instead of Kazi or Kazamara? So did you create a new username? Is what you're saying? You decided to change up what you like to call yourself? Because I just realized by you saying Tomo, I just realized that's actually, you know, the Tomo that used to, you know, you came out and hang out a couple times. So why the sudden name change?
Let's rock.
Gotcha. That's cool. That's cool. So have you been playing Destiny, or you've been taking a little break? And have you finished that campaign yet? Gotcha. Playing anything else, or just kind of like just taking a break from video games for the time being? Gotcha. What movie you watching? Is it a Halloween-inspired movie, or is it just like a movie? You know, 'tis the season, I guess. Okay, no problem. Damn, I died. I feel like I'm doing really well. Oh god, I'm being shot at. I'm being shot at. As I say, I'm starting to do really well. I'm being shot at. Oh god. Where's their team? I feel like they all left, or they're all just hanging out. I guess they're. All right, I'm gonna get this. I have a. No, no, no! Damn it! Damn it! I thought I picked it up. Oh, and they're all running for it. Probably gonna be. Damn it. He stepped backwards as I tried to get him. We still got the advantage though. We're still up 2-1. No. Well, anyway, back to I guess my random discussion I was having. So, I would say, you know, as much as I haven't personally talked to, I would say a streamer in general, I would say in a weird way that, you know, there's streamers out there that I listen to and take information from, and because I do this, I feel like, you know, certain streamers influence, you know, who I want to be as a streamer, you know, and that's, I feel like, going full circle, you know, back about, you know, your channel, Brandon, I would say that's like going full circle, you know, taking what you got influence from someone else and kind of taking it and making your own spin about it. You know, my favorite aspect of Say No to Rage is probably his general discussion that he has in his streams. You know, he typically begins every stream, granted, because I guess I work, you know, in the daytime. He begins the stream at 7 a.m., which I'm in the process of going right out the door, so I don't really get to actually catch his streams. But what I do is that I typically watch like either his VOD, or I listen to a podcast, or usually sometimes he uploads a clip of it onto YouTube, and I typically, you know, that's how I usually pretty much ingest what he provides as content. Damn. You know, that's how I usually typically ingest, you know, his different streams and things like that. You know, and it's like, you know, I like having some, you know, I enjoy his open discussion. What, like I said, I don't, you know, he says don't, you know, copy, but it's like, you know, you learn from other people and you make your own spin on it. So, like, what I want to do is like maybe somehow inspire to like do like either a podcast, but, you know, have some sort of general discussion about it. Like, I'm not gonna do a podcast on Twitch streaming, one, because I'm very new and I don't have a very big following, but at the same time too, it's like maybe do a podcast on, you know, I like to just talk about video games in general. It doesn't have to be Destiny, it can be anything. Like, you know, it can be talking about upcoming games, it can be talking about games we used to play back in the day. You know, something like that. You know, I feel like, you know, trying to throw something out there like that. You know, I don't, you know, it's like I don't have very vast knowledge of what there is and what there isn't. You know, I like, you know, thinking about like nostalgia kind of games that, you know, you played as a kid, or games that were great back in the day, and just having like general discussions, like almost maybe pick a, you know, every day we talk about just a different game in general. Like, you almost pick like a very, you know, big classic hit that, you know, a bunch of people can relate to. Like, for example, if you were to have a discussion, like we throw out a game and say like Super Mario Brothers 3, I bet you 10-1, unless there's very young streamers or very young viewers in here, 10-1, everyone's at least at some point in their life has played Super Mario Brothers 3, or Mario Brothers 3, Super Mario's Super Nintendo. think Super Mario was the first time they used Super Mario. Anyway, besides that, but like Mario Brothers 3, I feel like majority, if I would say at least 75%, if not higher, of Twitch's viewer base has probably seen, played, or done something with Super Mario Brothers 3, and just have like a very general discussion. You know, some people say Super Mario Brothers 3 is like one of the greatest, you know, Mario Brother games of all time. You know, there's a debate saying that, you know, it is, and I could say at the same time too, I would say, you know, there's also a fight that say like Super Mario World is one of the greatest Super Mario games of all, you know, Mario games of all time. And then there's people who would say like Mario 64, one of the greatest, or I don't know, spitballing. Mario Galaxy was, I would say, is really good. I don't know if it's the best, but you know, and even people may say like the classic original Super Mario, or not Super Mario, Mario 1, you know, the original OG Mario. Not talking about Donkey Kong Mario, I'm talking about like OG, like Mario standalone series. You know, and there's a general fight saying that, you know, Super Mario Bros. 3 is as great as it is, you know, because of this. God damn it, Moobot. Hold on, that contest is over. Damn it, Moobot. Why do you gotta embarrass me like that? God. God, Moobot. Ugh, so embarrassing. No one asked you to talk, Moobot. But, anyway, what I was saying is, you know, there's like I would say there's probably a very good chance that, you know, there is a general population that could say Mario Brothers 3 is a very, you know, the best, if not the best, Mario game ever made. Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, it's almost it's quarter after 1 my time, so I can only imagine how bored you'd be at like, how bored you'd be at what? At 1 o'clock in the morning, my time. Yet again, I don't know. I mean, if you want to join in my random discussion I'm having, I'm saying how Mario Brothers 3 is probably one of the greatest Mario Brothers games ever made. I don't know if you've partaken in playing Mario Brothers 3, but I would say it's probably one of the better Mario Brothers games, if not the best. I'm not gonna say, I don't think it's the best in my opinion though. I have a very big soft spot for Mario 64, I would say. Really like Mario 64. I'd say that's like up there. Yep, now it's 1:16 a.m. So you're in the same time zone I am. Okay. I'm weird sometimes, and I say like things like quarter after, quarter of. I don't say half past because that's just really weird. But I say like the quarter after, quarter of, 20 after, 20 of. And half the time it confuses people when I talk about time like that. Oh, whoa. Alright, well that didn't go well for you. You wasted a rocket. I mean, you said you were watching a movie before, so I guess there's that. I mean, have you ever played Mario Brothers 3? I mean, I know we had a discussion the last time you were here that you played like X amount of games before. In your opinion of Mario games, where would you say that's ranked? Would you say it's one of the better of them? Would you say it's the best of them? Because I mean, there's a lot. If you really think about it, there are like, I think there's probably like 20-something standalone Mario games in some sort of form. Oh, that's my guy. Nope, nope, nope. Like, if you had first Mario game that came to mind that you say you could just play and pick up and probably. So, I would say one of my favorite Mario games of all time is probably Mario 64. I can honestly say there's probably countless hours that I spent roaming around that castle, not actually doing anything of any importance, but I was just jumping and doing crazy, stupid stuff in the castle, probably dying a couple times. I'm leaving. Peace out. Damn. Like, I guess Mario Brothers 3, I would feel the classic thing about that is a lot of people remember it because there's a way to get these whistles that almost allow you to skip through the game and not actually have to do certain worlds. Like, you can go from, I think, world 1 to world, I would say it's either 3 or 4, and then you jump from world 3 or 4, and then you pretty much go to like the last world, the second to last world. And it's had like very solid, side-scrolling platforming. Like it's like the pinnacle of refinement for, like, I guess Mario Brothers in general. Mario 64 was the first ever 3D Mario. Generally, it's what Mario Odyssey is going to be about. It's like that open world-esque. I mean, granted, most of your time was spent roaming a castle. But it's that, that freedom there was to explore a castle and do Mario things. Mario Galaxy there was planets, and it was kind of like the same concept, but you went from planet to planet. Let's see what else. There was Super Mario 3D World, which is like a take on the classic Mario formula, but in like a 3D aspect. There was like the Super Mario Brothers something on like the other. Okay. I'm just randomly ranting. It's cool. Which movie were you watching? Well, I'm just gonna, I guess, ramble, and then you can chime in when you, I guess, want to. So I'm just gonna go back, I guess, to my random discussion about Mario games, just, I guess, in general. But I would say, back to my discussion about, I guess, Mario Brothers 3. I would say Mario Brothers 3 is probably the pinnacle of the side-scrolling Mario games of the time. It took what Mario Brothers 1 did, and it took what Mario Brothers 2 did, and built upon that. It created this kind of this like refinement of both aspects, and you could say in a weird way it was like early signs of what was to come from Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario World, just because Super Mario World features some of the same things that Super Mario Brothers 3 had, but there's a very iconic soundtrack to the game. I would say there's certain things about it that you know, are very nostalgic in the sense that if you were to probably turn it on, you'd probably just really? I feel like I did so much better than 13 and whatever. I don't know, I would say there's probably, you know, I would say there's a very strong nostalgia for Super Mario Bros. 3. I think the NES Classic contains Mario Bros. 3. What does the Classic Edition of NES Classic contain? Yeah, so yeah, it does contain Mario Brothers 3. Oh, it actually is. Really called Super Mario Brothers? I could have sworn it's called Mario. Interesting. Anyway, but I would say that Super Mario Brothers 3 is, I guess, the pinnacle of the NES version of Mario. Just in the sense that, you know, it was pretty much that end of console Mario Brothers game. You know, it was like just it was like a refinement. It added additional things that, you know, the original Mario Brothers didn't have. It almost was like an early version of an open world game, just because, you know, you go on to the different worlds, and different worlds had like different ways you could almost navigate through it. Like, there's ways to avoid castles, there's ways to avoid, you know, doing certain levels. Like, you didn't have to do every single level in the game. You know, it was the first time that Mario Brothers 3 had. Well, Mario Brothers 3 was the first time that you could like run and like almost like have that power jump, which, you know, in a weird way, if you really think about it, Mario Brothers 3 was I would say like a precursor to what Super Mario World had. You know, it was the first time that we were introduced to the Koopa kids. We were introduced to Bowser's children, and I believe at the end of the game you fight Bowser. Why is it so hard to remember? But yeah, it was pretty much, you know, the same general story that was done over and over again, where, you know, Princess Peach is captured and you have to go and save her, yada yada yada. But, you know, yet again, it was just one of those things. They took what they previously done and they refined what they did. And, you know, you can't say that about every single game out there, just because, you know, there was that solid point in this current generation where all we weren't getting anything new. We were just getting more of, you know, games we've already played at least once. Let's see what you got, Lord Shax. What do you got? Show me what you got. Chest and power weapon. 302, 303. Oh, sweet. Alright, let me put my shader on. Or I look really weird. Oh wait, I don't have a watermelon shaders left. We'll do that. What do we do? We do... Oh wait, I did my clan XP, that's what it was. It's not... Okay. back to what I was saying. So like Super Mario Bros. 3, it's probably the most pinnacle side-scroller Mario Brothers game. You know, at the same time too, you could say that Super Mario 64, you know, it's one of those games that probably can never be replicated, because that was the first time ever they took a Mario game and they opened it into a 3D world. And you know, it's just one of those things. It's like that ooh and ah, you know. I guess in a weird way that comes into comes into turn. It's like, how would you take, you know, a game or a franchise and reinvent the wheel? Because I mean, we already did 2D, we've already done 3D. There's not really another dimension you can really add unless you really want to add like some sort of sense of smell to anything. But I don't think that's really gonna happen. I don't think there's gonna be smell-o-vision, or, you know, I guess, you know, like adding a rumble pack is, you know, like the next best thing to kind of make it seem like you're actually in the game. But you know, there's only so many ways you can refine the wheel, and that's why, like, you know, I guess the next thing is it's pretty much going to come to that point where eventually games are going to become, you know, more visually appealing. But that's, you know, and we're at that point now where it's so minuscule of a visual improvement that, you know, to the untrained person, you know, it's like, well, what's, you know, someone may say like, well, you know, this Destiny 2 looks exactly like Destiny 1, or Destiny 1 looked exactly like how it looked on an Xbox or whatever, or, you know, Xbox 360, and then you know. And it's just one of those things, like, you know, to the basic person who doesn't follow or get really involved into what's going on in, you know, systems and stuff, you know, people don't understand in that sense. And now I feel like I'm slowly getting off topic, but I don't know. It's just one of those things, like, you know, kind of, you know, it's like, you know, I feel like in a weird way, if you polled everybody, you know, there'd be, I would say, a mixed consensus of which Mario games people like, if they do like Mario games. And at the same time too, it's like, I don't know. That's not a very good reply. But what else? What else can I just randomly rant down about? I feel like I would say probably in like the next half hour or so, I'm probably gonna head out for the night. But I guess in the meantime, I never got my reputation bundle, and I can do my flashpoint, I guess. Let me do, that's not Nessus. Yeah, flashpoint Nessus.